Welcome to the NBA Daily. It's trade deadline day, so we got Sam Amick to break down all the big moves from the last 24 hours and the fallout and ramifications. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Zena. Good morning, Sam. Although it's afternoon, let me not pretend like we're not talking right after the trade deadline. This is probably going to go out pretty fast as an emergency podcast. We just finished the live stream. If you caught us there, thanks for hanging out with us all day. It was a pretty good time. Sam, I know you're the busiest guy on the planet right now, so let's jump right in. Jimmy Butler, he's now a Warrior. We thought he was going to go to Phoenix. That didn't work out. How did this happen?
Guys, thanks for having me. I think you're as busy as I am. I just saw you on the live stream and now you're on the pod. So appreciate you joining me here. I mean, listen, it's funny. If you go back a couple of weeks on the Jimmy Butler front, myself, Marcus Thompson, Anthony Slater had detailed in a story how the Warriors seemingly did not have interest in Jimmy Butler. And we had information and insight from top to bottom. You're talking ownership, front office, players. There were certainly people in the building who thought it might be a good idea, but really in Warriors world, as Zena knows really well, where the prominent voices there matter so much, the early signaling was we do need help, but it was so messy in Miami with Jimmy. There was some reservation about him being the perfect guy. Now, fast forward to the trade deadline getting closer and closer, the Warriors' pursuit of Kevin Durant and that possible reunion that honestly, 2 nights ago, I went to bed thinking, man, I think this is going to happen. And that obviously played a big part here. It showed a couple of things. It showed the level of desperation with the Warriors because they knew at that time that Kevin wasn't going to be thrilled about coming back. Now, they were willing to do the deal with a certain level of discomfort. And as we reported, yesterday, I think it was, the Suns had interest in Draymond, for example. And there were some folks talking about how, man, would the Warriors think about maybe even moving Draymond to, relieve pressure from those dynamics to make Kevin more comfortable to come to the Warriors? Like, that's the kind of stuff they were looking at. But when Kevin decided clearly to broadcast the level of disinterest and discontent that, would be there if he went to the Warriors, that was a game changer because the level of uncomfortableness went up for the Warriors. They had to then figure out, okay, that option that had all that history and basketball wise, obviously you would just put Kevin right in and get back to doing what they did a few years ago. That's off the table. Then they turned to Jimmy. And really it's, I think a win-win for both sides. I still think Jimmy Butler is one of the best players on the planet. Take all the drama away. He's an incredible ball player who honestly, if you talk about making the most of your talents, he's on my short list all time. For sure. And the Warriors give him this extension that really is one additional year because he declines the option for next year, has a year after that. So you are talking about 2.5 years potentially. That's the contract relationship where we're going to see what Steph and Draymond and Jimmy can do. But it was a pretty interesting path to get there.
Now, we talked to Marcus Thompson a little bit about this on the live stream today, and I asked him about the timeline because you bring in Jimmy Butler at 35 years old. You're paying him $60 million a year to make a move now. But at the same time, you're keeping a young core in Jonathan Kuminga, Moses Moody, Brandon Podziemski, Trey Jackson-Davis, Quentin Post. I mean, the list goes on. It does seem as if the priority doesn't seem to be clear between this team. Are we trying to win now and take advantage of the star power that is left in Steph Curry and pair him with a big time scorer in Jimmy Butler right now? Or did we do just enough, especially considering they didn't make any more moves past that, to keep our young core and really focus on keeping this thing entertaining until the young core is ready to take over?
Right. To me, Zena, the optics, there's just enough there where they can say, oh, no, we have young guys that are going to improve and we'll see if we can get a new deal done for Kuminga this summer. And so you can sort of check the young box in the future box. But where I land on this and where it feels like they landed is that one way or another, Steph Curry is going to one day not be on your team anymore. And when that day comes, the best case scenario of whatever strategy you come up with right now is going to pale in comparison to what you had in him and what you did with him. And so that leads you to say, all right, Jimmy's crazy. He's nuts, sometimes in good ways, sometimes in dysfunctional ways. But, I was in the bubble when he took the Heat to the finals. And like that dude was a monster. And that dude, when he's motivated early in the Miami years, incredible. If you would have given him one more guy, then, I think they put a better fight up against the Lakers. So he's 35. I get that. He does take very good care of his body. He's going to be motivated. I think it could be a good fit. I kind of like the fire when you talk about spark and competitiveness. My God, Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green. Are you kidding me? Shooting is, something I think in the buyout market, they got to start trying to find some shooters. They've gone from Splash Brothers to, Cannonball Brothers. So
belly flops.
Yeah, that's better. Yeah. Good job, Dave. But I'm kind of digging it for now. I think it'll be fun to watch.
Yeah.
Cool.
Let's talk about the KD side of this, because when the reports came out that Jimmy Butler wanted to go to the Suns, I don't know if you were like me. I mean, you're more plugged in than I am, so maybe you weren't as blind as I was. But I thought, oh, Kevin Durant wants Jimmy Butler to come play, and they're going to try to get these guys together. But then we wind up in this situation where to get Jimmy Butler, the Suns were going to have to get rid of Kevin Durant. And that to me seems absurd. And apparently there's like issues now in Phoenix where KD is not necessarily happy, but how did that happen? Like, how did it get to the point where the Suns are actively shopping Kevin Durant around?
So the sense I get is that, and you nailed the breakdown there, Dave, because it was supposed to be Jimmy to Phoenix with Kevin. And then you started realizing that if the Suns didn't get Jimmy, that there was, beneath the surface, there was a level of impatience or frustration that the team was feeling from Kevin in some form. And I'll be honest, it's funny. As long as I've covered Kevin, I've joked in the past couple of days with colleagues that, and I like and respect Kevin, and we have all learned how sensitive he can be at times to being, represented publicly with his feelings and his emotions. So, like, all I'm saying is I'm not speaking for how Kevin felt, but the Suns and people around the NBA were getting intel that Kevin might be available if they don't get Jimmy. So the idea was that he's not satisfied with the Suns. He was hopeful that they would get Jimmy, and then he would have renewed hope. And once that wasn't going to happen, this is the part that I love. There were strong indications that Pat Riley was kind of sitting up in his chair a little bit and going, whoa, wait a minute. If the Warriors are going to get Kevin Durant, I think I want Kevin Durant. I think I'm going to swoop in and take Kevin and box the Warriors out and go that route. In fact, as we sit here on our podcast, one of Kevin's producers, whose name is escaping me, I've talked to him before, but one of his closest kind of friends in the media space had tweeted out a picture of Kevin in a Heat jersey or put it on IG. And so that got people's attention, and so that's just the sequence of events. And now I don't know how far you guys want to go down the Kevin Durant road, but certainly
as far as you want.
Well, I mean, I wrote the other day that the Warriors were not alone and talked about Dallas and the fact that they made the trade for Luka. And, myself and another one of my colleagues, David Aldridge, had multiple people telling us that Dallas had their eyes on KD as a possible, domino one was AD, domino two, what about KD? And they didn't expect that to be something that would unfold at this deadline because, again, people didn't think Kevin would be available. So I think that's worth watching in the summertime. Another team that I hit on was Houston. Now, admittedly, man, Houston's always a tricky one because they feel so good about what they have now, where they're going, that their message had been, we want to see this group through at least until the summer. But leading up to the deadline, there was some indications that they were kicking the tires on Kevin. Now, admittedly, when we wrote our piece, they were messaging immediately like, I don't think we're a home for KD. So that is a case where the dynamics are interesting. GM Rafael Stone is there, Coach Ime Udoka. I definitely get the idea that, I think there's just people in the room talking about this. And but Houston became part of the conversation. Now, if you look at the summertime, and we'll see how Phoenix plays the rest of the way, I think it's 100% fair game to say, that the monitoring of Kevin Durant is now on a whole different level, with people wondering, what's going to happen there.
Well, that's interesting. You talk about Houston. When I think Houston and Phoenix, I think about Booker. And right, that was a conversation that happened too. What happened there?
The Suns, they're pretty, so far they've never signaled a willingness to get off of Devin Booker. So yes, and I'm glad you mentioned that, Zena. The idea was that Houston was going to essentially do like a routine check-in on Devin because it's widely known how much they think of him. Devin is the type of guy that, largely because of not only talent, resume, but age, that his age is much more in line with what they're trying to do. And like I'd written like a couple times, that the Durant thing was unlikely because same idea with James Harden previously is that, they're trying to keep the timeline on a certain track. But yeah, Booker not available. Don't believe the Durant discussion even happened. And now Houston is perfectly, content moving forward to see what this group can do.
Guys, stick around. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, I'm going to ask Sam about the Lakers and if he agrees that they're now actually championship contenders. So the Lakers shocked the world and have kind of muted Super Bowl week by trading for Luka Doncic Saturday night. And they weren't done. They picked up Mark Williams, good young center from the Hornets. They get this, floor spacing, like vertical spacing, big to pair with Luka Doncic. They are serious contenders now in the West, just by adding Luka Doncic. But now they've got this perfect fit. And offensively, I think they're going to be a pretty big load. How did the Mark Williams trade come about for the Lakers? And like, were they thinking about other guys, or was this the guy that they had their eye on the whole day?
First of all, Dave, I gotta rib you a little bit, my friend. Like, man, how many times have we said on paper, like, this is a perfect fit and it's going to be great. And the Lakers famously had the Sports Illustrated cover, like, this is going to be fun with Dwight Howard and Steve Nash and Kobe and all that. So I'm going to reserve judgment. On paper, it looks good. Luka's coming off a calf injury. I think his general health obviously has been a hot topic lately. Mark Williams, I like the addition. Some health concerns with him that, people have obviously talked about his struggles on that front. But yeah, the roster looks fantastic. I absolutely love what I've been hearing, and I have not been to LA since the trade. But from hearing from LeBron about his headspace in relation to Luka, that clip from the game the other night with Luka on the bench, when LeBron just goes beast mode through the lane and finishes and one, looks at Luka and says, basically, this is what we do. Like that sort of chemistry could be a lot of fun to watch. So I'm still a little bit in shock that this deal went down. To your question about getting Williams, before the trade, Lakers obviously already on the hunt for a big. At that time, it was to satisfy. Well, I shouldn't say that. We didn't know at that time. We thought it was to satisfy Anthony Davis's, desire to play at the 4 spot. But considering the Luka discussion dates all the way back to February 7th, that was not the case. They had talks with Houston about Steven Adams. No deal gets close there, just not enough on the table. We heard names like Robert Williams out of Portland, Jonas Valanciunas, although I'd, pre-deadline or pre-Luka trade been told that he was too kind of plotting for their preference. So once you get Luka, then, I would love to have seen their list, and who knows, maybe I could still track it down. The list of lob threats and these types of players, because, Luka's skill set is so unique and so dynamic that, you knew what kind of player you wanted. Defensively, some concerns here, but offensively, I think a wonderful fit in the vein of Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford. We've seen how much damage Luka can do with guys like that. So, kind of like the Warriors, I'm fired up to see this team too.
It's interesting how you have to play the game of chess as a team of, let me not give this team too much because we don't want them to also come back and, beat us. But I feel like the Mavs within the West just gave the Lakers exactly what they needed to level up. My curiosity, I think about when Boogie Cousins came to the Warriors. Now, what I felt when I worked in the front office, I was singing Boogie, Oogie, Oogie. I was feeling it, right? I was just like, this is going to be perfect. They're going to be monsters. And Dave, Sam, I don't know if you guys remember, it was not easy getting that team to gel on the court. I mean, yes, they made it to the finals, but that was due to another very tall person out in Phoenix alongside Steph, Clay, and Draymond, not necessarily the addition of Boogie. I'm curious if there's other teams that you could think of in like recent history that have added major players and it's not worked out as well, just to level set. Because I think right now everyone's like, including myself, the Lakers just leveled up. They might win a championship. Like they might do this.
Sure.
What's a good way to level set around this?
So I wasn't on board with this, but the most recent obvious one that has become an absolute disaster is Paul George going to Philly.
Yep.
Right. Mm-hmm. Like when Paul went to Philly, that was, I think if we had a Rotten Tomatoes gauge, it'd be like a solid 80%, like people were digging that move. One that I wasn't on, and this is the inverse of your question, Zena, is, Kyrie to the Mavs. I thought they were crazy, yeah,
that's a good point.
And it's worked out. So our batting average is not great on that front. And it goes back to the fact that you just have to see it. So, I don't know if any other examples come to mind for you guys, but my general rule, even as every year we do preseason predictions, right? And I just have it in my head. Like if the majority of this team has not played together before, I don't care how good it looks on paper. I'm not handicapping them as, a West champion or East champion, whatever. I got to get eyes on it first.
It's like Minnesota a couple years ago. They get Rudy Gobert. We all do the math and we're like, oh, this is going to be a top 5 defense no matter what. But it took them a year to figure it out. This is the argument here for making the trade at the deadline versus something that's going to be available in the summer, in my opinion, because they get the next few months to figure all this stuff out. And they already got a jump start on building this team around Luka by picking up Mark Williams. And I think the LeBron and Luka thing is going to work. I'm not worried about those two guys working on the offensive end. It's all defensive, but again, we need to see them play. Sam, there were other moves.
Can I, Dave, jump in before we move on real quickly? To add to the LeBron discussion, I think it's worth noting, and we'll see how this ages, if it holds up okay. I'm now of the opinion that the LeBron Luka thing is probably going to be awesome partly because, and I'm talking on the court, but also my goodness, you can't ask for a better fit with Luka and all the conditioning and health concerns. Go put him next to the guy who is the best of all time at taking care of his body. And also, LeBron and his family love living in LA so much that I think if he got sideways in this situation and it turned sour when it comes to his part in Lakerland, then he might end up having to retire somewhere else. And I think that is enough to make him say, you know what, I'm reading the room. Let's go. I'm going to be the Luka whisperer and try to make the most of this.
I love it. He's going to be Yoda. Is that what you're saying? LeBron, last few years
old, but yeah,
he's going to be Yoda. Let's see. The Cavs, they pick up DeAndre Hunter. They're already a championship contender. I think that this solidifies that. In my book, how do you feel about that move? How they pull that off?
No, I love it. And this one, admittedly, I don't have a lot of the inside stuff on how the talks came together. But you're talking about George Niang and Karis LeVert and some draft capital. I like it. I mean, DeAndre Hunter, a two-way player, having a fantastic year. The Cavs, as much size as they have, we know physicality at times is an issue for them. So more versatility, more kind of, chippiness and aggressiveness on the wings, but a little bit more edge, which is when the Cavs play Boston, when they, play OKC with what they bring defensively. It's just another very, very strong role player to a team that has been incredibly dominant, and until recently was on a historic pace. So Kobe Altman out there, the Cavs GM, who, has been through it, man. You talk about a tenure that, started with LeBron coming back and LeBron leaving and Kobe kind of made his way up through that front office, takes the gamble on Donovan Mitchell that so many assumed was not going to pay off because Donovan would head off to New York eventually, continues to build around him. I'm kind of a big fan of what the Cavs have built out there.
Yeah, Kobe Altman does not get enough credit for his rebuild in Cleveland. I mean, it started with just getting in on as a third team, fourth team, and picking up second round picks that they didn't have because the cupboard when LeBron was gone completely bare. That's a good point. And
also coaching change.
Yes,
I think that was a huge upgrade in Cleveland. We've had 2 shows now straight that we've made club references, and I'm going to try and make it 3 in a row. Okay, because this started with Marcus Thompson talking about Cam Johnson being the baddie in the club and everybody trying to buy her drinks. Okay. And everybody trying to figure out what's the number.
Marcus Thompson was in the club looking for that.
That's a great question. Exactly. But this aspect of the club is closing. It's 1:59 a.m. Everybody's paired up. They're walking out the door. And the girl that everybody was looking at all night is somehow walking out alone. In this case, it's Cam Johnson. How the heck is Cam Johnson still in Brooklyn after this trade deadline?
Just a high price tag. They wanted 2 firsts. Teams, in my neck of the woods, last I'd heard, the Kings had, 1 first on the table and they felt like it was a good first. And so there was I think across multiple teams, a discussion about, as we know, not all firsts are created equal. So there was some frustration in the Nets direction that they sat on their price tag. They obviously knew that it was, or seemed to know that it wasn't going to get done near the deadline. I forget exactly where they were, but somebody tweeted a picture of Nets GM Sean Marks and one of his kind of right-hand associates scouting a game, in middle America where it was just not exactly the same as working the phones a day before trade deadline. They kind of knew what they were doing. And if somebody wanted to call Sean and offer the moon for Cam, then maybe they'd do it. But that hits a guy that he could have been a game changer. Like you look at Milwaukee getting Kyle Kuzma, in my head, I kind of go, man, what if you got Cam in that role instead? That kind of a player and youth wise and upside wise, there's more untapped potential there, I think. But yeah, I mean, Marcus is right. The baddie leaves alone and we'll see if there's another night party.
We got Sam Amick to say baddie on the pod.
This has been a banner day on this show.
If MT can't make me feel young, then nobody can.
You want to give us a trade that nobody did, or you want to save that?
Trade that nobody did. I'm going to disappoint on that front. We might have one that we shared a little bit here, but yeah, I'm going to disappoint for now. I mean,
that's okay because the summer's coming. Some of these trades, this is important to remember that Cam Johnson's probably getting moved this summer, right? Sure. A lot of these trade talks are starting now for stuff that'll happen later.
I don't have anything sexy worth sharing on the pod. I mean, again, we mentioned the Kings. Like John Collins is a funny one going to the Kings just because near about a week before the deadline, I mean, you had people even saying that some players were already getting messaging that John was likely going to be on the team. And so that one kind of faded.
Wow.
Yeah. That's not a star player, but it's a very well-known name. But yeah, we can never get enough of that stuff, right? Like, there's 200 different moves that could have happened that didn't.
Yeah, I'm sure Danny Ainge was involved in a bunch of them. We'll find out later.
I'm going to leave you guys with this because I can't let this go. And I'm stealing this from, I think this was Draymond Green talking to Barrett Davis on his podcast. I had not slowed down to think about the fact that they were dying laughing that Danny Ainge, known Laker hater, helped the Lakers get Luka Doncic and didn't know about what he was doing until the very last minute of that trade. I find that admittedly hilarious. And I like Danny a lot. I'm not trying to put salt in the wound, but the idea, it's a real thing around the league that people believe Danny won't trade certain players to certain teams based on old rivalries from back in the day. Knicks, no, we're not doing that. Like, so Danny's old school. And I'm pretty confident that had he known that he was going to help gift wrap Luka Doncic to the Lakers, he might have ducked out of that deal.
I love that.
That's crazy.
That's how it ought to be, by the way. Have some pride. All right, guys, this has been a great day for us here at the NBA Daily. If you were on the stream, thanks for hanging out. If you weren't, go and check it out. The YouTube channel is pretty fun. Sam, thank you so much. We've leaned on you like a crutch for this entire trade season. So thank you so much. Please, I hope you're taking some time off for All-Star, or at least after All-Star. So thanks for hanging out with us.
Appreciate it.
For Zena Keita, I'm Dave DuFour, and this has been the NBA Daily. Thanks for hanging out with us.